I think it's safe to say that the pandemic has affected us all in a lot of different ways. From depression to anxiety to so many other feelings and thoughts that we might be struggling through right now. And with the potential of the pandemic finally maybe being over and we can maybe get back to real life, I feel like this topic is more relevant than ever. Megamaxstar, my guest, and I, we sit down and talk about what it takes to push through hard times. Now, there's going to be hard times after the pandemic, and we don't know for certain how long this pandemic is going to last. I believe we have hit 100 million vaccines by this point, but nonetheless, we don't know what normalcy is going to be for us. So I think it's important for us to sit down and have a conversation about moving forward, dealing with setbacks, dealing with depression, dealing with social or just any kind of anxiety or fear in general. I feel like we have a really great conversation about this topic. I really enjoyed it. So if this is a topic that resonates with you, if you've had a hard time trying to bounce back from failure, maybe you lost a job, maybe you lost a loved one, whether it was from COVID or just situations being tough, maybe you're just dealing with some really tough times, some hard emotions that are really difficult to deal with. This episode is going to be for you. What's going on, guys? I'm the Philosopher, and welcome to FGC Philosophy. This is where we talk about how we can level up inside and outside the virtual arena. That means that we take what we learn, whether it's in games or outside of games, and apply it to our lives so that we can be better, so that we can help other people grow, so that we can help our community grow. Because it's hard to grow alone, but it's easy when we all work together a little bit at a time. And that's why I started this podcast, right? I really wanted to help people. And so we're going to get into that topic in just a second. But what I'd like to do is give you guys a little bit of an update. I'm trying to do that as much as possible. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this and we're going to get right into the topic. But timestamps are going to be below if you don't feel like listening to this portion of it and you just want to get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation. No harm, no foul. Anyways, so a couple of updates with me. Nothing too major. The biggest thing right now is we got the monthlies going on. Our first official monthly is going to be at the end of this month. That should be the 29th. I'll put the link down below so you guys can register and check that out. We also have a $100 prize pool for Street Fighter V. If you want to add to the prize pool and help the winner take that pop bonus away, by all means do it. I would greatly appreciate it. It is a $10 entry fee. It replaces one of the weeklies that we do. So instead of having like 4 to 5 weeklies in a month, or 4 to 3 depending on what month we're in, we're going to replace the last Monday with a monthly instead of a weekly. So a little bit of confusion there, but I've been trying to explain that as much as possible. But that way we can kind of spread out the payment, and it's going to be first, second, and third payouts. That way, rather than just winner take all for the weeklies, we can pay out more people, which is good. More people making money. I like it. Outside of that, honestly, there's not really too much for me to update. I'm working on being a father, as always. That's the thing I've been really trying to put most of my thought into outside of my business. Business stuff, I can't really talk too much about most of it right now because it's mostly in the planning phases, and so I don't like to talk about it while it's in the planning phases. I like to talk about it once I know for sure things are going to happen. So when I have more updates on that kind of stuff, I will. I've definitely been learning and trying to grow a lot and thinking about that. A little bit stressful, a little bit hard, which is partly a good reason why I'm glad I did this topic, because sometimes anxiety and imposter syndrome can pop up out of nowhere and really affect you. So I'm really glad I got to talk about this topic because it kind of helped me get my head on straight a little bit better. And also editing this episode has helped me get my head on straight while re-listening to myself and Megamaxstar, who drops a lot of knowledge and really helped me think about things from a different perspective outside of my own. So that was really helpful. Other than that, the last thing I really want to mention, the one thing that's really been helping me throughout this pandemic in general has been listening to audiobooks. You know I talk about books a lot. You know what I'm going to say. It is Audible. I don't always have time to sit down and read, and with ADD, I sometimes struggle to sit down and read a whole book, a whole chapter, a whole page. I'm not saying I'm not working on it. However, I still want to get through books, and I want to get through books as fast as I can because there's a lot of knowledge, and sometimes I just need a little bit of entertainment. So usually at nighttime, I listen to something like Ready Player One or the Sword of Truth series. And then in the daytime, when I'm working on stuff, I like to listen to more motivational or business or just anything that's more so related to personal development in some way, self-help, that kind of stuff. Simon Sinek, Josh Waitzkin, so many other authors, Napoleon Hill. I love that kind of stuff as well. And so what you can do is you can go to taviannapier.com/audible and you can get a free month of Audible. Try that out. You also get a free book. If you wind up keeping Audible and sticking with the service, then I get a little bit of money, which helps me out and helps me continue doing what I love. And then you also get a great service. I don't like to shill products that I don't use, but I literally use this every single day. I've probably got over 1,000 hours in Audible for sure, listening to a lot of different books. So I just checked my Audible app, and according to the listening time, I have 1 month, 10 days, 7 hours, and 30 minutes. If you're watching the YouTube video, you can see my video right there. But yeah, so I've got a lot of time in the app for sure. And I also got 55 books in my catalog. So I've listened to a lot of books on that app before. When I was a little bit younger, I used to sail the 7 seas, if you know what I mean. So I had audiobooks in different sources, but I finally consolidated most of the books and repurchased them or reacquired them, I'll say, on Audible. So it's been a great tool. It's really helped me out. Sometimes listening to the fiction helps me deal with depression or anxiety. I can kind of listen to something and not watch a TV and totally veg out. I can still be kind of productive. I can still work out. I can still, lie down and kind of just relax a little bit and let myself get swift away. Swift away? Is that the thing to say? Wafted away? That doesn't sound right either. Whisked away. While listening to these audiobooks. So it's been very, very great. I highly recommend it. I'll put links down below if you guys want to check that out. But that said, thank you guys so much, and let's get right into this episode.
So the topic of today is pretty much pushing yourself to the hobbies and the goals that you want despite current climate or current events that are constantly going on. And just keeping at it, and the importance of keeping at it for your own benefit, and seeking your just bettering yourself in that sense is, I guess, the best way I can describe it.
yeah, for sure. I can relate to that personally, just with all the stuff going on. So for me, this affected me in like multiple different ways. Like the pandemic specifically, right, has affected me in a lot of different ways, and has caused me to have to build new habits and push through different like negative mindsets, right? So for you, what mindsets did you have to shift, right? What mindsets for you do you notice and have to kind of work through in moving forward?
Honestly, the mindset of it's going to be okay, things are going to get better, kind of mindset is really important, because obviously a lot of the stuff both you and I were working for and working towards pre-COVID was a lot, and it was there was a lot on the horizon, obviously, that we were working towards, and COVID just fucking stopped all of it. And that was depressing. It really was, because like a bunch of stuff happened, just one after one after one, and it's kind of hard to just see everything that you've worked for and then just being like, man, I don't know where to go for now. Like what's going on here? Because I'm sure everybody has had that. Like pre-COVID, everybody had something that they were working towards, and it either stopped completely abruptly, or like it slowed down to a really high point. And just thinking like, we're going to get over this, and we're going to keep working on it, and we're going to take what we have for now and improve upon it. Slowly but surely we'll get there at the end.
Yeah, to add on to that, it kind of made me think about the fact that I feel like a lot of us are in this wait mode right now. We're waiting for the pandemic to end. And I think that prolonged waiting may have built some bad habits in itself, right? we're all at home, we can't go out too often, we're probably not as active. And for me personally, I know that the less physical activity I have, the more it affects my mental and emotional state. So the less I exercise, I know for certain that is directly linked to my moods and things of that nature. So many people might be going through like some form of depression or just some negative emotional state that they're in because of the lifestyle change in itself, but also that psychological state that we're in, that we're thinking we're waiting for something to end so that we can get back to our lives instead of adjusting to the lifestyle that we're currently in and then worrying about transitioning once that change happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It is weird because we are kind of in that waiting, and especially for our locals, it's obvious that we're waiting for our locals to go back to where we were in our prime, like almost right before COVID. We were having 20, 30 people coming in from all different places, Grand Rapids, Indiana, all these different like areas, and we had a billion setups, but right now we're just a very humble small community that are just playing games when we're able to meet up. And it's kind of like a little fall from grace, but we know that we're going to get back to that point. And as long as, I think the most important part for us is because we are keeping at it, we're not getting rusty, and we're making sure that we're keeping tabs on everybody. We're constantly throwing out ideas, and we're just thinking and trying to almost completely act upon it, but to the point where we can just think about what we want to do in the future once it's given to us, and then take that and then move with it. And I think that's important, instead of just actually sitting there and just waiting for something to happen, waiting for the pandemic to end.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've definitely, so first off, continuing to maintain certain habits like editing and like streaming tournaments, running tournaments, competing, because like myself, you run the tournament for Dragon Ball, you stream the tournament for Dragon Ball, you sometimes might commentate the tournaments, but you also will sometimes compete in them as well. So it's like we're brushing up at the very least with all of these different areas, and that's been tremendous for my emotional state, honestly, like more than anything else. But I've also been able to maintain multiple facets of the FGC because of it, to where I don't have any concern about starting back up a tournament. Like I hadn't even thought about that fact, actually, that I don't know how to like run, stream, commentate a tournament. It's like I know first off that I know how to do that. I know that Max knows how to do that. I also know that like Ian is very interested and knows how to do multiple parts of it. And it's like there's other people who are also, if they can make it out, they're reliable as well. And so from the FGC perspective, which I think is a good analogy or example of other areas of life, is that maintaining it has, for me, been good for my emotional state, but also just the fact that I have this skill. I feel very confident in that area. I might not be the best at it, but I'm ready to take on new challenges in that region. And then similarly with other areas of life, like for me, fitness has been like, it fell off, it's back on, it's fell off, it's back on during this pandemic, especially during the winter for me, where I have seasonal affective depression disorder or something like that. Like it's SADD, I think. But it's basically like seasonal sadness, I think, is like the nickname for it. But anyways.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is very relatable.
Yeah. When everything was going on and then we started doing our online tournaments, honestly, that was like you said, it led a little bit of more purpose to me too, where there were days that I really didn't want to, and honestly just getting up, doing it, like, made me feel like I did something for today, made me feel like I accomplished something too. And to a point, it was an antidepressant. It might have been like, there might have been times where I was really frustrated, things weren't working, but for the most part, when things were working the way they're supposed to, it works great, and then everything just falls into place, and then the tournament runs fantastic, and like it just works.
Yeah.
And it feels great. It feels good. And not only that, but I'm brushing up on my skills as a competitor. I'm brushing up on skills as an editor, and on as a content creator and streaming. And I mean, we've both seen huge increase towards our viewerships and our tournaments. So it's been fantastic, for the both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the craziest things to see, like the craziest progress to see, is the progress in other competitors, right? Like someone who's like new to the tournament, new to the competing, and all of a sudden, like, your tournaments are a direct impact on their improvement in that game, right? Because they have access to so many different level skill of players and stuff like that. I know I've seen it. I'm pretty sure I've seen it in your tournaments, just like from looking at the brackets. But also, I've definitely seen it from some of the players and them even expressing that.
Yes, we've been getting some crazy killers actually. And my tournaments are a lot more not exactly casual, but a lot more friendly towards anybody from around, because obviously people don't like Dragon Ball Online, and it is an obvious issue. However, I guess from my standpoint, and it's probably why I don't get as much of a player base as like maybe Spooky or some other larger ones where they're all regional, but I let people come from all different areas and play from all different areas. And most of the time, people really downplay Dragon Ball for this, but if you have a good enough internet connection, you can play someone from, like, if I'm from Michigan, I can play somebody from Florida, or I can play somebody from Cali. Like, if your internet connection is good enough, then you can play. And I don't want to have that as a like thing to stop somebody from playing. I might have some people stopping from coming in and playing in my tournaments because it's like, oh well, it's not regional, people can just join from wherever. But like, all of my top players have fantastic internet, and like, they don't run into any issues playing with each other at all. Granted, I would love to be able to set up something where it's easier, but Parsec costs money in the terms of getting virtual computers. And I would love to be able to do that, but in terms of how much it costs versus how much like it's gonna work out, if I actually had more support on my stream, then maybe. However, coming from my own expense, it's not worth it. And like, as much as a great thing it is, what we have works, and I'm getting great competitors from all around. The top player of my current tournaments is a player named Closer, who just came out of nowhere and just started destroying everybody on the map. Like, I could not believe it, but he literally was untouchable. And I think did he lose for the first time? I don't think so. No, he just didn't show up last week, but he's like 7-8 times winner. And it's like, man, dude, this guy is nuts. And I can tell that it really improves all of my other competitors, where they're like, man, I just want to get this guy. I just want to beat him. And then we're all just working towards a greater goal to just be better.
Yeah.
And I can tell that I've improved too, by a large margin. Just by playing against one of the other killers in our area, when we went and actually played locals, the dude that constantly beat me, like, I would go like 1-30. I beat him in like the third game that I played, and I was like, dude, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So
Musketeer.
Yeah, Musketeer.
Yeah, shots. Musketeer.
Literally, I beat him, I think, second or third try, third game, and I was like, this is progress.
Yeah. I got it.
And Flash Kick, he poses no threat to me anymore, which is absolutely hilarious. It's actually like, I've achieved a higher being, man. He hates playing against me now, and it makes me laugh. So
that's great.
So I think that's fantastic, and I think that's, personally, just seeing that, because I've constantly pushed myself and I've constantly kept at it, I can still see my growth. And I didn't see it really as much until local started up, but because I was constantly playing, I would play Dragon Ball 1 to 2 times a week, either at my weeklies, or I would practice every now and then with my practice partner Vernon. And it's a very slow grind, but it's a grind, and you can see your improvement.
Yeah, definitely. I see you guys improving all the time. It's I don't want to go down like the too far down the Dragon Ball rabbit hole, but I do appreciate like when I fight you guys, because even though I don't have the muscle memory to do the things that like I know I'm supposed to do, it like there's some comfort in knowing like how you guys play, because I can kind of like adapt to play styles a little bit quicker, even though I don't have like all of it there. So it's like seeing guys always improve. It's like, no, I'm probably not going to beat you in a tournament like ever, like in a tournament scenario, but like getting sets off of you and like figuring out what you guys are doing in a set is like incredibly helpful for me, because I can kind of like maintain, even though I don't like play as consistently as you guys. So like, I gotta put in my practice. I know like that's something that I'm still working on, but so there's so many fighting games out there right now that I'm really excited for. So that's hard. I'm not gonna lie. But
with Guilty Gear coming out, whew.
Yeah, that honestly, I've been seriously thinking about like, okay, I don't have any interest in competing, but I just want to get really good at like Nago is really cool, and I legitimately just really like the character. Like his playstyle is really, really cool. It's just like Sin. His aesthetic is really cool, just from his like his helmet. I love that helmet that he has. The fact that he's a black dude, honestly, like having that representation is cool. But he's also like, I'm not interested in edgy kind of stuff. But like the idea of a black samurai vampire is ridiculous to me, and I love it.
It's just so out there. I love it.
Yeah, so personally, that's been like motivation for me to want to just finally get good at a Guilty Gear game. This one seems more approachable now before it gets all wacky with updates and stuff like that. So I would like to be able to maintain a high level of play with like more than Street Fighter, right? I would like to branch off into another game, and this feels like I could do that game with Nago. Like this game just makes sense, that character makes sense, and it's just a matter of like, do I legitimately want to put the time in so I don't get like emotionally upset if I don't like hit certain goals. So I'm kind of just evaluating while I wait for that game to come out if that's like a commitment I'm willing to make.
I think for me, the most part that's got me interested in it is, well, obviously it's ArcSys, which is the same guys as Dragon Ball, so it's always something interesting to go for. But honestly, just the netcode in of itself, like learning and feeling what good netcode is supposed to be is important. And I think it's like, as someone who wants rollback netcode, I want to experience what I am looking for in a game. And from my experience of just playing from the beta, my goodness, it's like night and day for just coming from Dragon Ball.
So another tangent, but I think this is actually worth hitting on before I go back to the main topic, because I have a point I want to get to there too. But I do also, from a moral standpoint, or like moral, ethical, I don't know what you would consider, but to your point, I want to support this game for that very reason. Like I want to be like, hey, I'm making a statement. I'm buying this game because they are making the right choices towards supporting like the FGC in terms of like, it's how important it is. So even though it's not, maybe it might not be my main game, I want to get it as early as possible because I want the other developers to be like, you gotta do this. You gotta start adding this into your game. Like you have to do better than what GG Strive's netcode is. Like, why aren't you trying to up the ante? That has to be a priority, because I think in our, like, I don't know how long this pandemic is going to last, first off. So netcode is crucial right now. If you're launching a fighting game and you have shit netcode, don't waste your time. Like KOF is going to be like dead on arrival if they really don't implement their netcode. Now, I'm not trying to like crap on them by any means, because it sounds like they're trying to do it. But it sounds like they're not confident that they can, and it just seems like not a high priority for a lot of people.
And look what happened to Sam Show.
Yeah. So I think that from that standpoint, I want other developers to see like, you gotta prioritize this if you're going to be making games in this current, like, this period. First off, but also during this pandemic, you gotta do that. Like, this has to be an expectation, I think.
Imagine how much of a better game Samurai Showdown would be if it had rollback. Like, people would actually play it. People would actually like play this game, because nobody plays it because the netcode is an absolute dog shit.
Yeah, I think I was in denial about this whole topic in the first place to some extent, because I never really experienced it to a degree that affected me. Like, it was here and there, but like the more I started playing Street Fighter, and the better I got at Street Fighter, and the better my execution got, the more I started questioning, was it my execution or was it lag? And I've started getting a lot better, like, over the years at how to recognize when I'm lagging and when I'm not. And it's just like, the issue is it's inconsistent. Like sometimes I'll have a bunch of good games and like not notice any lag, but the inconsistency makes
That's
it
what's
very
important.
hard to play and very hard to want to play the game because sometimes it makes no sense. You can be in the same city and people are lagging. Like I've lagged with like people in my own city versus like lagging with someone across like another country. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Oh my god. I played some games on stream a couple of days ago, and like I completely forget because I don't climb ranked all that often, but man, I forget why people like really do hate the netcode on Dragon Ball, because my goodness, there were some games that were just terrible. And netcode is so bad, or like when the connection between the game is so bad that you have to completely change how you play because like the connection isn't good enough.
Yeah.
I think that's where you fail. That's where the game fails.
Yep.
And it's where everything you've learned thus far has gone into the gutter, gone into trash, and like you have to play so weird and out of place where you're like, I'm just gonna react, I guess, or I'm just gonna wait or something like that, you know. And then when things don't go the way that you want them to go, it's even more frustrating. You're like, oh, of course it has to lag mid combo for me. Okay, like
yeah, you start making conspiracy theories about the lag. Yeah. It's like, why
you get into your own head, man.
Yeah.
And it's not healthy for the player, and it's not healthy for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think also just for some reason people who aren't competitive don't really maybe understand the importance of that. And that could be and I know for certain that there are developers who develop games that don't understand the importance of things because they're just ignorant to like what other people, to what their fans appreciate, which, from a business standpoint, fine. Like, I get you want to make the game the way you want to get, like, or even from an artistic direction, like you want to make the game in a way that you want to make the game. I understand that, but I also think that it's incredibly foolish to make games that you expect other people to play without taking their legitimate concerns and thoughts into consideration and like taking it seriously. And there are developers who are more so understanding that now, so I want to appreciate that. But I feel like a lot of them are thinking about this as an afterthought, so they're trying to add it onto their game. Which, if you've worked in game development, you understand that trying to add in a feature to the game after the fact, rather than having it being a core structure of the game, can just be almost impossible to difficult. So when an SNK is saying we might have some difficulty, it's because it wasn't part of the original plan, and they're now realizing the importance of it, which it's probably too late and it's going to suck. And I hate to say that, and I hope I'm wrong, but like, you're supposed to think about this kind of stuff at the beginning of making the game before you start it, because I'm not a great programmer, but I've been around a lot of programmers, and things have been thrown in or like horseshoed into the game, and it just won't work properly, and it just takes a lot of time to fix those issues. That's just a fact of the matter. If you don't make it part of the foundation, it's like you're playing fighting games and you have really bad fundamentals, but you get like really good at the game. It's probably going to be a little bit harder to relearn and unlearn some bad habits that you've gotten to that don't work anymore, versus having that be part of your foundation from the get-go. You're going to be a stronger player, have a stronger foundation, and probably improve to a higher degree, have a higher skill ceiling. So that's where we're at with a lot of people, and that's why you'll see developers saying we're trying, but it's not going to happen. But I digress.
Yeah, I would say before we move back to the main topic, did you see the developer roundtable?
I'm waiting for the updates and highlights. I didn't watch them. I wasn't going to watch the whole thing, but I was going to watch some highlights from somebody.
It's the topic of rollback netcode was like hearsay. Sajam has a fantastic video about it that he talked about because he was a part of it.
I started his video. I guess I forgot to finish it. Yes.
Yeah, finish that video because it is pretty funny, because like how he talks about it is just like whenever netcode came into topic or something like that, like everybody's looking around like, oh, are they gonna say it? Don't say rollback.
Yeah, I remember him saying that part right there. Yeah, that's hilarious.
So it's and that's the shit that's crazy, is these developers still aren't being like, well, you guys might be right. The Japanese developers are pretty hard-headed.
Yeah, there's a whole pride thing. So I guarantee it has to do with the fact, like, of a couple of different things. Maybe we'll talk about this in a different podcast. Like, this is a rabbit hole that I want to go down, but I'm not gonna do it right now. But yes, I did watch it, or I did watch that video actually. Now that you mentioned it, I don't know if I watched the whole thing. I'll go back, but if I remember, I'll post a link in the description for people who don't know what I'm talking about and want to get updated.
Yeah.
So one thing I can't pose this as a question per se, but this is something I've been thinking about even before you brought up this topic, is that there is this hard to explain process that happens when you don't want to do something and you somehow either find the strength to convince yourself to do it anyway, or I'm trying to find a way to explain this in a way that's like making sense.
I think I get the gist. You're really like not in the mood to do something and just convincing yourself to do it, right? In a way. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of where you're?
Yeah. So
and
like,
how do you do that?
So like, more importantly, the process that it takes to get from I don't want to do this, I'm not going to do this, to I don't want to do this, but I'm doing it anyway. Like I feel like there's multiple steps to get there, but like it's like I'm a fighting game player and I just like, how did you do that, bro? I don't know. I just did it. Like, how did you beat me? I just did it. But like, I know for sure there's like certain things in between those two steps.
Right. Yeah, when you that's actually a great thing to bring up, because there have been moments where I've played on tournaments or just a random match, and I'll just do something incredibly out of place, like some incredible mix-up or some really hard like read, and it would work or something like that. I'm like, what made me do this, kind of a thing. But also just convincing myself to do something that I don't want to do. There have been plenty of times where I've hit that, and it's with working or with streaming or doing anything really. And there have been points where I've broken down and I've just said, I'm not doing this today, or I'm not going to do anything today. Mm-hmm. And I think the important part is to realize that it's okay to have days that you don't do anything. It's okay to have days that allow you to just like de-stress yourself. But you have to draw the line somewhere for yourself, for your own benefit, because those things can be beneficial to you, and actually not doing them can be more hurtful or more harmful than they are good. But I think realizing that sometimes you need days for yourself, sometimes you need times to just wind down and just, not do anything. My whole mindset is always, there's always tomorrow. But convincing myself to do something, because there have been days where it's like, man, I am not feeling today, I don't want to stream today. But then I'm like, no, I should stream today, because I give myself a bunch of, I kind of do like a pros and cons list in my head. There's so many more people looking forward to watching me. My viewership is going to increase. The tournament's going to go off without a hitch. A bunch of stuff like that, where I just think these positive kind of ideas of why I should do it. And I think when you're in that in between in your head, you have to pros and cons it. Where it's like, what are the pros today? What are the cons? Like, if I do it, what could possibly happen, or what is going to happen? And then what are the negatives that could happen? Well, the stream could turn out poor. There could be nobody watching. But, those kind of cons sometimes kind of fix themselves while you're streaming or while you're doing whatever action that you want to do for the day. So I think just picking yourself up and just thinking like, and honestly just focusing on the positives. Don't let the tiny little negatives get to you. I find myself to be a pretty optimistic person, so I try to find the like tiny little good things in things that are overall bad or overall terrible, and I want to focus on those things and just kind of push forward from there. But there's always times where it's tough, and that it just hits you, and it's like, man, just everything sucks today. But that's okay, because those days are going to happen. They're inevitable. You can't have all fantastic days. So you just have to learn that, like, okay, today's a bad day, but it's okay. Let's try to make something good out of it today. You know?
Yeah. And so to play devil's advocate, I want to bring up the idea of a person. So that relates to you, right? So there are people out there, and I've fallen into this category myself, where we can't be objective because we're filtering and only seeing the bad in things and not acknowledging the good. So the question that I think of is how do we make it to where we're actually being objective and seeing the good and the bad, and actually being able to, like, if you can't weigh the pros and the cons if you only see the cons. So there's that imbalance where you're only seeing that area. How do we see the cons and be able to look at both of them objectively, you know?
That is a pretty good question. Well, if you look at yourself critically, I feel like people are generally more equal to finding negative things and focusing on those negative things a lot more. And finding those cons can sometimes be a lot easier than they are finding the pros. Because pros can, I mean, sometimes to somebody there's no benefit. There's no, like, there's nothing to get out of said situation, where you're like, man, this is terrible. I hate this. Like, what do I have to get out of this? But I guess to me, just finding that tiny little thing. My coworker is really nice. Oh, sweet. I'm going to be working with them today. Or like, it's pizza day at work. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, finding something so incredibly small to just kind of latch onto that and just focus on that for the day.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can also be bad, because if that thing goes south, if your favorite coworker doesn't show up, if you don't get to have any pizza on pizza day because everybody ate it all right, well, everything I was looking forward to just crumbled today.
It gets worse. Yeah,
it gets worse.
It reaffirms what you're already thinking.
Right. So, and you know, it's gonna happen. We've all had it.
Yeah.
You know, we've had our expectations completely diminished and just completely destroyed in every way that, like, hits us. And you're like, man, I need something, man. And at least working retail before, I've always found just the smallest things of, like, oh, somebody said something really nice to me, or somebody said something really funny. Like, I try to, like, fixate on those things to just help me get through the day that I'm having a really tough time.
Yeah.
And just trying to work on those. Because obviously making a pros and cons list in your head is very difficult already, because most of the time, if you're making a pros and cons list, you're focusing on the cons. You're more on the cons. That's why you're making the list, because you don't want to do it.
Yeah. And for me, everyone has their own solutions and how they're going to work it out, I think. But what worked for me was this almost a realization about understanding that what thoughts you... So how do I explain this? The thoughts that you allow focus are the thoughts that are going to be the best. So, like, I'll give you an analogy. Like the seeds that you grow and water and feed are going to be the ones that are the most prevalent. Now, you can kind of relate negative thoughts to weeds, right? They can grow very easily. They get, like, you have to tend to them pretty often, to where it's like you need to get rid of them and, like, cut them in the root and not pay as much attention to them unless it's something that is useful. Like, if you're stressing about paying the bills, now, yes, you need to acknowledge that there's something you need to do to take action to fix that issue. However, stressing about the outcome is not going to be productive. And so you have to be able to separate this negative thought of the outcome that you're focusing on. I'm afraid of this outcome. I'm afraid of this outcome. Versus, I need to do something to get myself away from having that outcome, because it is a real possible outcome. So it's like very logical fear, but the fear itself cannot be what your core focus is. And I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but essentially it's like you have to, because I hate, like, when people say think positive. That's like saying to an artist, like, oh, color in crayons, you know. That's a very primitive very like simplistic example
Don't
of
be sad.
Yeah, don't be sad. Yes, like that's. I might even be guilty of saying that myself, you know, because I don't know how to fix a problem like very fast. But it's like there's so much more psychological stuff going on. So to recap, essentially is just acknowledging what's there, getting rid of the bad, and keeping the good and letting the good thrive in your brain and your focus.
Yeah, I'm also a very huge procrastinator. So I've I've hit a lot of points that are exactly like that, where it's like, if I don't do this thing, this bad thing's gonna happen. Like, I'm gonna get fired, or like I'm gonna like lose my apartment or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I need to move. I need to do something about this. I need to go fix this thing. And I am probably the worst procrastinator I know, because I wait till like the last minute to do some things all the time. It's always been like that, and it's hard to fix myself in that sense. But I think having people around you as well to help you kind of push that idea in a very positive manner, I guess, is the best way to think about it. The positive way, a way that's reinforcing, that doesn't feel nagging, can help you as a person. And obviously, not everyone's going to have somebody there for them like that. But if you do, having that person can help. But if you don't, you just have to focus on yourself and remember that the issues at hand, if you take care of them now, they'll get better later. Because they're just issues right now. And when you're done, when everything's all said and done, it's gonna look better in the future. You know, like you'll have another day. There's another day that you're gonna be in. You know, so you know, I just always focus on the concept of you're gonna have bad days, and you know, this might be the bad day. All right, well, let's just try to make the best out of this, you know, terrible day and push forward. But the important part is keeping at it and pushing constantly. Keep pushing yourself, keep striving for the better, and you'll see the fruits of your labor eventually. You might not see them now, you might not see them in a couple months, you might not see it in a year, but everything you're working towards right now and everything you're working towards as a person will come to fruition eventually. It's all about patience, really. And you might see tiny little bits of your improvement, like here and there. You might not see any at all. But to you, what's all important is what's in your head. And the more you do something, the more you'll know it, the more you'll remember it, and the more you're going to be more knowledgeable about it. And I don't know. I guess just keeping at it will keep you kind of, I'm trying to think of the word here, on your toes in a way. So yeah. You'll know like if there's something that's, you know, in your position, if there's something wrong that happens, well, because you were keeping at it and because you were constantly I guess let me use an example. If an editing issue happened where let's say you completely lose audio, well, you know from your experience what you can do to get the audio back, fix the problem, change the media output, whatever you have to do, and, you know, make things work. Now, because you were constantly editing videos and constantly doing something different, you have knowledge of this, and you know this because this happened before, and you were able to fix it. But if you were going at it like you haven't before, then you won't know, and you might become more frustrated, and it might take you more time to figure something out. But the more you do something, the faster you're going to get at it. And I noticed that too with myself, with editing, because I recently started editing a lot more, and I noticed how much faster I was getting at it, and how more attuned to editing I was after just a week, 2 weeks, you know? And I haven't edited in a minute, but well, previously, I haven't edited in a minute, and now that I'm more on it, and now that I'm more practiced in it, I feel a lot better in it. I feel faster. I feel better about it, you know? And there's a lot more things I know about it than I did before. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my TED Talk.
That's your TED Talk. There you go, right there.
That's a TED Talk.
No, that's very well said. There is an observation I've seen in a lot of people and in myself where it is. I'm trying to think about how to articulate it. I'm gonna think on it for a second because something you said made me really think about it, but I kind of lost it.
And I did kind of go off on a tangent.
Yeah. No, you're fine. I appreciated what you said, but there's something to do with like how people are. They almost feel entitled to feeling a certain way. They almost feel entitled to like life being a certain way, right? It's like they're convinced that life is supposed to be a certain way, and if they don't, then they're upset about it. And that includes like how they themselves behave, like their habits and things of that nature. And I think it's important to really hammer on the fact that your mental state is a habit as well. There's like different thoughts that you can choose to tell yourself. And there's different thoughts that will pop up if you don't manage them. And I think it's just as important to have a mental habit of discipline as it is to like physical habit of like, oh, this career that I want, or this thing that I want to be good at fighting games, or I want to be good at editing. You do need to physically put yourself in that situation where you're doing it consistently. But there also needs to be this, or I think it's important to have this aspect where you're mentally trying to be present and mentally trying to focus on what I talked about with like the good managing your garden, like managing your mental garden, putting your attention as much as possible to what you're doing and putting it to attention in a productive way. So like, yeah, you might be thinking about playing fighting games, but if you're thinking like I'm trash at fighting games every opportunity that you get to do that, that's not productive. What would be productive is not giving that thought attention and focusing more on what you can do and how to better yourself. So it's like there's people, we know extreme examples of this that want to focus every opportunity they get to be like, see this, I'm bad at games, or see, like this was stupid of me. Like there's people who do that mentally as well. I fall into that category sometimes, but it's important to catch yourself when you do that. Say, no, this isn't the habit that I'm going to have, because the thought that I wanted to hammer down earlier was a lot of what we think is essentially programming in a way. We can tell ourselves what we want to believe. We can create our own belief system, whether it be religion or just personal. But there's definitely some importance to habitually telling yourself certain kinds of ways of thinking. Otherwise, you're basically a slave to whatever your thoughts are going to think at that moment. There's a mental discipline there that you have to tell yourself, I'm going to be this kind of way, and I'm going to behave myself in this kind of manner, as whatever that is for you, right? So that's kind of like what I was trying to get out earlier, that hopefully makes as much sense as possible.
To piggyback off of that, something that I always say and something that I always talk about, if I'm talking to anybody, or even if I'm, trying to think of it myself, when everything comes down to it, when you're making it the most simple thing possible, the only thing that truly matters the most in this world is yourself. That's all that matters. You can worry about something that, some problem that's happening at work, the way that something is happening to someone else. But truly, when things are really pushing you down to terrible, like, feelings, thoughts, and all that truly matters is yourself. And managing your garden and taking care of yourself is the most important part of anything. Yourself comes first before anything else, when it really does come down to it. And I think focusing on that thought is important.
Yeah, to add on to that as well, for people who might be thinking like, oh, my family's more important than I am, or something along those lines, I'm not saying you're wrong. However, if you don't take care of yourself first, then you aren't able to provide as much care for the people you care about as possible. So in a sense, I still agree with what Megamaxstar is saying, is that you are your most important aspect, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't help other people. You can't do things for other people as much as you can. Maybe you are helping other people, but if you burn yourself out at the expense of, if you help others at the expense of yourself in any way, that's not good for you, and that's not self-care. And a lot of people will do that because they don't care enough about themselves.
Or they're too focused on someone else.
Yeah. So, I mean, whatever the reason may be, it is important to take care of yourself and make sure that you're building the habits that you want, that you're making sure that you are happy with whatever it is that you need to be happy, or whatever it is that you need to do for yourself, because we evolve, we change. Some people are afraid to change themselves. And I'm not saying you have to change your authenticity, but you do need to build new habits. If you want to lose weight, you do have to change your habits. You change your lifestyle. If you do want to get better at fighting games, you do have to change your lifestyle. You want a career, yada, yada, yada. Whatever it is, there's something about yourself that you're going to have to change, the habits that you have. So I don't think there's any reason to sugarcoat that topic and, talk about that. But that just helps you be your truest self. If you want to be an artist, there's things that you got to do and habits that you got to have to be an artist. That's going to be different from who you were before you started that journey. You might not know where you end up, but that's part of the fun of this video game we call life, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it truly is when you bring it down to the most simplest form of expression, you are what matters, and everybody matters. I don't we've seen multiple cases of people just in our community that are really down on themselves, and fighting games are kind of their only thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they're down on themselves with the only thing they love, it gets really frustrating, and it gets really tough. And when you're in times like that, I think that's what you have to focus on, is you, yourself, and I. And just looking at it from a very a perspective that can be, I'm trying to think of what the word is, I'll think of this. I can't believe that word has lost my head. A constructive, when you're looking at it from a constructive viewpoint,
Mm-hmm.
you can take a look at what's toxic that's going on around you and what's not working, and try to apply it. It's well, I'm a part of this lifestyle, or I'm doing this thing, but these people are very toxic to me, or doing this just does not make me feel happy. And you have to really think about it from that standpoint. And it's you can stop at any point and you can swap to whatever you want. There is nobody saying that you can only have the one hobby you like, or you've put in too much money towards that one hobby. If something's interesting to you, then you hit it, you go for it, and you try it, because that's what you should do. And if that's what makes you happy, there you go. It's as simple as that. If it makes you happy, then go for it. I think there's too many times where people are really shamed for what they like and what makes them happy. Oh, you spend money on card games, or wait, didn't you just spend $100 on this thing? Why are you going into this? Who cares? You're dabbling in so many different things. It makes you more of an interesting person. It makes you more engaged. Again, do not give a shit what other people think about you in negative lights. All that matters is what makes you happy as a person. And if you're constantly pushing yourself and you're constantly trying new things, go for it,
Mm-hmm. I agree. I will add, just spend responsibly within your means. That's the only caveat I'll add. But I guess that goes, kind of implied, right? But yeah, I do agree. For me, I've done a lot in my life. If I talk to someone, I tell them all the jobs I have, they'd be thoroughly surprised. And there's been different iterations of me throughout my life where I've just changed who I was and learned new habits and built new skill sets based off of what I wanted to do at the time. And I didn't know what I wanted to do as until I was 25, right? I didn't have any idea of what I wanted to do in life. And I kind of just like, not floated around, but for a good portion of my life, I was very unproductive. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm getting into programming. Let me learn some programming. Don't like that. Let me get into this. Let me get into game development. I have this, I have a degree in game development at the time. I still do have it, and I still kind of use it. But, just learning all these things, working in a juice bar was one of my favorite jobs, was working at a juice bar. And like doing raw vegan smoothies. One of the best jobs I've ever had. Coolest boss, coolest coworkers. Like, I love that job. Plus, the name was called Go Raw, so it was like it was kind of funny. So, it was in San Diego, beautiful place. But like, I've just had so many different jobs in my life, and I've had so many different I've gotten out of my comfort zone a lot. Right. That's another point I wanted to make earlier before we head out. Is I really want people to understand that and this is why I don't like the term cringe. Is I don't like people avoiding uncomfortable situations. Because uncomfortable situations is where you learn about who you are. When you're in an uncomfortable, unfamiliar situation, that's how you put yourself to the test. Whether it's playing against stronger opponents in a fighting game, or if it's trying to like talk to a girl or guy that you're interested in, or like whatever it may be. It's like, if you want progress in that area, but you're not willing to be uncomfortable, then you're not going to grow. So it's really, really important. That's like the other key to this that we haven't talked about yet is being okay with being uncomfortable, because progress isn't going to be made in the comfort zone. Like, anybody who's ever tried to learn a new combo understands this by just by second nature at this point.
The amount of pretzeling I've done to my fingers just by trying to press buttons on my fight stick, just half circle, just do it, just come on, work.
Yeah.
Just learning something simple like that,
Yeah.
Just come on, work. It's frustrating, but you'll get to it. You'll get it eventually.
You ever tried doing the trick of going on a circle one way and then doing your other hand the opposite direction? Have you ever tried that before? That's what it feels like, doing a combo that you don't know how to do. And it could be the simplest combo, it's literally just quarter circle punch again. But your brain just doesn't understand it for some reason.
Oh my god! Yeah,
it's more intricate than that.
If anybody's done combo trials all the way through, you'll know why am I pressing buttons this way? Why am I doing the things I'm doing? I don't get it.
Yeah.
But once you do get it, and once you get past it, it's probably one of the nicest feelings. You're like, let's go, dude. I did it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So
go ahead.
The one thing I want to say to add on is I like using video games and dating as analogies, because I think there's a lot of similarities between them, oddly enough. But it's the same thing with for me, I'm heterosexual, so I like women. So when I was younger, I was trying to talk to girls, but for a long time I was very unconfident in myself, and I'd never put myself out there. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna be embarrassed. I'm not gonna try to talk to this girl. I was nerdy. So in high school, I got a few girls, but usually they made the move on me, right? I didn't make the move on them. But as I got older, I realized that you gotta just do it. And it's your brain does the same thing, where you try to talk to a girl that you're trying to court, right? Your brain starts just pressing, you start button mashing with your words. You don't know what you're doing, you're just saying stuff. And it's just it's the same thing, where you just have to be okay with getting uncomfortable. You have to be okay with being embarrassed. And what the weird thing about embarrassment is, you're not embarrassed if you don't care what other people think about you. So it's you may be put in a quote-unquote embarrassing situation or a cringe situation, but if you don't care, if you learn to not worry about what other people think about you, then it's not embarrassing, because you just don't care. There's a caveat of the internet being a thing and things being recorded, that I will kind of attach a little
side note.
Yeah. But
no.
In normal social interactions, it's I learned this in high school, because I used to care. I used to be timid and shy and not want to embarrass myself, because I was so afraid of what other people thought about me. And then going to the gym and not worrying about what people thought about me, and just getting my workout on and leaving, and not worrying about anybody else, and not worrying about me being overweight, that was a huge relief. I felt like I was chained by my self-consciousness. And that's the thing with being shy or being scared to put yourself out there, is that the more you do it, the less uncomfortable it gets. And that's everything in life. But those two are the most impactful, frustrating things that I can remember in my past. that like I always want to use as an analogy when I can.
Yeah, something to say too is you might focus on something being really embarrassing, but truly, how many people remember your embarrassing moment in middle school that you think of? I don't remember anybody's embarrassing moment in middle school, like, or whatever, way back then. And a lot of times they're strangers, they'll see it, they'll maybe laugh, and then they'll forget about it,
Yeah.
And the important part is like it's not gonna loom over on you, and maybe it might, but don't let it, try not to focus on it, but more than likely it won't. It very, very more than likely, you're okay. It's okay to have those embarrassing moments. It's okay to push yourself from those points, get yourself out of your comfort zone to see who you truly are as a person and what you like and what you don't like, because there's no way you'll know unless you actually try.
To really hit back on a point that you made earlier today is that it's a lot of what we're talking about takes time for it to happen. It takes time for the progress to happen. Pretty much all the topics that we've talked about, you're not going to see a significant result right away. So there is that that faith aspect where you do have to understand that this is going to take time to make progress in these areas, whether it be changing how you see the world, like how you filter and how you think about the world and stop being so negative, or whether it be just stop being so lazy and procrastinating and actually just doing the thing, whatever it may be for you. It's important to understand that it really does take a little bit of time before you see the progress. So you have to worry more about being consistent and worry more about building the habit of doing it rather than the results itself. Because if you focus more on the process and not the progress, you're going to have a healthier mindset around the whole entire thing, versus if you're doing the thing with this expectation, this outcome, you're not going to have a productive outcome in the long run, because you're going to get disappointed by your expectations rather than just building that habit before it's like second nature, right? When you're learning a combo, you learn the combo until you can do the combo without thinking about it anymore. That's everything. You need to kind of have that mindset. At least that's what worked for me.
Right. And I also want to say, if you have a partner or someone that you're very close to friendship wise, and you see them making these efforts, attempting to better themselves, I think what's important too is making sure that you see that they're trying and you see that they're changing. And I think just having that tiny little thing saying like, I'm proud of you for doing this, or like, you're doing so much better lately, those tiny little things always make somebody's day and always makes them feel better about themselves and push them more in a way where it's like, thank you. I'm glad that you see the fruits of my labor. I'm glad that you see the work I've been putting in, and I appreciate you. And it's always check on your friends. Always just know, people are going through tough times too, and making sure that your close ones know that you see them and you see the work that they're putting in. It's just those tiny things that really make somebody's day and pushes them forward to somebody better than what they already are.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. All right, any other points that you want to hit?
I think we hit them all.
Yeah, I think we did a pretty good job of talking about this topic. It's so important, and I feel like through my different journey in life, and I'm sure yours as well, I have new realizations or paradigm shifts around that topic, because sometimes I revert back, or I go back a little bit, fall back, depression might hit me personally, and it's like I kind of have to rebuild some of these skills, especially during this pandemic. I've had to rebuild myself and my perception of myself, being a father, all this new stuff that was happening in this new world. It's like it takes practice and consistency, but since I already had a pretty strong foundation, I think I bounced back faster than I would have when I was younger, or maybe other people who are dealing with similar issues. So it's just, you got to keep on working on it. But yeah, that's all I've got.
Perfect. I'll do my closing remarks. You can find me on Twitch and YouTube, twitch.tv/Megamaxstar. I stream, Tavian and I both stream. Mighty Mona Mondays, I stream Dragon Ball tournaments at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. And then also check out our YouTube as well, We haven't been we haven't been showing off that YouTube too much. Yeah, and we haven't been uploading. But I have a bunch of VODs that I've been meaning to send all the way back. Something I've been procrastinating on, and something I need to push towards. But we have a is it KZoo FGC? That's our YouTube, right? Yeah, KZoo FGC. Check that YouTube out for all of our tournament VODs and everything that happens there. And most of the time, we've been timestamping them too. So if you're a part of the tournaments, you can just look at the description and check the timestamps of when your match happened on stream, or when you want to see grand finals or something like that. So, and also follow me on Twitter, also Megamaxstar. That's it.
Cool. I'll have the links to all the socials in the description. The last thing from me is to make sure you check out the YouTube. I got some content on there I've been uploading. I'm finally doing some fighting game content. I did some Strive content. I've also got some Dan gameplay coming up as well that I'm going to upload here pretty soon. So make sure you check out the YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for the continued support. This has been fun to talk about as always. Make sure you share your thoughts in the comments down below. Until then, I will see you all in the next one.